Hello, my name is Meredith Kutz, a Professional Development Associate here at NACE. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, 2021 NACE Awards Celebration Panel Discussion, July 13th. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce Wayne Hampton and Keith Sun, our moderators for today's session. Take it away.
Good afternoon. Good morning, everyone. I'm Wayne Hampton. I'm one of the managers with Disney Campus Recruitment. We're just so excited to have all of you here today. I had the honor and privilege of being the co-chair for the Honors and Awards Committee this year and was able to read the submissions of our award winners today. And I know one of the things that I always enjoy doing afterwards is thinking, how can I find out more about how they got this program off the ground? And that's what today is all about. So we're glad that our award winners were able to be here today and share more about that. I'm also going to turn over just for a moment to my co-facilitator, Keith, and then we'll have our panelists introduce themselves as well.
Great, thank you, Wayne. So hello, everyone. I'm Keith Sun. I'm with the University of Cincinnati. My current role is as Assistant Director of Career Development for the Lindner College of Business here on campus. Been with NACE for about 5 years now, and most recently won the Rising Star Award this year. And very, very grateful to NACE for that. We're excited about the panelists and the awards today that we'll be introducing to you all. Wayne, shall we share a little bit about kind of how this is going to go?
Yeah, it sounds great. So what we're going to do is have everyone here introduce themselves. We'll mention the award that they received, and then they'll introduce themselves. We have a series of questions that we'd like to ask them. We anticipate that this will take about 45 minutes or so of our time together today. And then at the end, we'll have the opportunity for you all to ask questions as well. You can submit questions through the Q&A in the chat. So not the chat function itself, the Q&A button that you should see. And we'll review those towards the end. Any questions that don't get answered today, though, we'll make sure that NACE addresses those afterwards. Keith, did I forget anything?
No, I think that's it. So we'll just kind of get started. So I will start first with our first award, which is the Career Services Excellence Award. This award from NACE is awarded to two winners, both one at the small college level and one at the large college level, for excellence in career services best practices. First, I'd like to have Stacey. Stacey, can you introduce yourself, your name, your title, and organization?
Yes, hi. Thanks everyone for being here today. My name is Stacey Moulton. I am the Associate Director for Marketing and Communications at Providence College in Rhode Island.
Great, thank you, Stacey. Next, we have Beth. Beth, can you introduce yourself, your name, your title, and your organization?
Yes, hi. Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for having me, Keith and Wayne. I'm the Director of the Career Development Center at Ramapo College of New Jersey.
Great. And then as Keith mentioned, we also have two other awards that are recognizing employers as well. These are for both large employers and small employers, and they recognize excellence in recruiting best practices. So first, I'd like to ask Jamil to introduce himself today.
Hi, everyone. Jamil Price. I serve as the North America HR leader for University Relations and Events here at Johnson & Johnson. So super excited to be here today and look forward to talking a little bit more about our program.
All right. And then our other award winner in this category is Erica. Erica, if you could introduce yourself as well, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Erica Clausen. I lead our North America campus recruiting program at Ryan LLC. We're a global tax consulting firm based out of Dallas, Texas. I'm excited to be here.
Great, thank you, Erica. And then our last award is the Members' Choice Award. This is awarded by NACE to an individual organization that addresses a challenge, problem, or issue that's facing our profession with an innovative change or improvement. And this year's Members' Choice Award went to Stephanie. So Stephanie, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Reyes. I'm the Senior Associate Director for the Career Center at California State University, Fullerton. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Stephanie. So I will just kind of jump in with our first questions for the Career Services Excellence Award winners. First to Stacey, if you can share a little bit about your Find a Friar series. Tell us more about the program and how you developed it.
Sure. So our Find a Friar series was developed to really replace our annual events that we always had called throughout the past 15 years, January's networking night. Due to COVID, our in-person events that gave students a chance to network and learn more about their careers of interest and different industries, as well as gain advice, was suddenly gone. So we wanted to be able to replicate that. So we half-jokingly, seriously said, let's kick off 2021 with 21 events. So we did that. We had 21 events that represented a variety of career fields for students over 8 days, all virtual, of course. So allowed students a chance to still kind of gather that career information and gain advice from alumni virtually over a little bit more than a week.
Great. Thank you, Stacey. Sounds like a very action-packed event, and I'm glad you were able to provide that to the students.
Great.
Wonderful. Next, Beth, can you tell us about the Pathways program and kind of how you developed it?
Sure. Thank you so much. So the Pathways program at Ramapo College is truly an all-out effort to engage students early and systematically with career development. So we recognize that not enough students were utilizing the center, the Career Center at Ramapo, and wanted to find ways to increase their engagement with the Career Center and prepare them for internships, other experiential education opportunities, and of course their post-graduation destinations. So after multiple iterations, we were able to actually introduce 3 zero-credit career development courses that all of our students at Ramapo are required to complete in order to graduate. And so students take these zero-credit courses in their first and second year at the college, and the Career Center staff manages those courses. The first course is about career exploration, and we use Focus 2 to do some assessment and some career mapping. The second course is about resumes, cover letters, and LinkedIn profiles. And then finally, students learn in the third course how to prepare for and conduct interviews, whether it be for graduate and professional school programs or for employment. And we've seen great results with those through the courses. We've seen increased engagement with our center. We've seen more positive feedback from employers when they're participating in our fairs. We've really been able to create a culture of career development at the college that is used as a marketing tool by our admissions department, and that is supported by all of our deans and our faculty. So that's a really exciting space to be in, where the college has a culture that supports and really promotes career development for students.
Wonderful. Thank you, Beth. It goes a long way when you're able to weave that into the curriculum and have the culture to support something like that. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll switch over and ask some of our employers questions. So Jamil, if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and start with you. I know that Johnson & Johnson created this a virtual campus recruitment plan and so forth. So, I mean, obviously we all as employers had to think much differently, but tell our audience here today a little bit about this program. You know, how did you develop it? How did you create it? Who all was involved in this? Because I can imagine it had to be quite the undertaking for something this large for an entire season or two to do this.
Yeah, absolutely, Wayne. And it was certainly a large undertaking with a lot of different stakeholders, both internally to J&J from our university recruiting team, also our business leaders, our program champions, and our LDP offices, but then also externally working with a lot of our colleges and universities and career centers to make sure that they knew how to promote this event to students as we were hoping to get their students to be able to attend. And so last fall, due to COVID and everything that was creating uncertainty, especially around, this time last year, we knew that we needed to shift from an on-campus regionalized approach to an all-inclusive global virtual event centered around our credo, which is our guiding principles here at Johnson & Johnson, which prioritize our team and the safety of our students. And so this would be the first time that we made such a dramatic move. And with that impact with the pandemic, we recognized that it was a great opportunity for us to think about the global aspect and really adapt quickly. So we really needed to think about ways that we could engage students just as effectively as in-person events, and how we'd really differentiate ourselves in the experience virtually, just because we knew that students were going to be going through the virtual fatigue throughout the entire fall and really this whole past year as we think about the recruiting cycle. And so what we determined and what we came up with was our breakthrough change, which was a virtual event where we shifted the traditional on-site campus approach to a virtual opportunity. And so we really gave students the opportunity to see within inside our company and how we've navigated and innovated through times of crisis, from being really the first company to mass produce antiseptic surgical supplies to inventing face masks, and then also looking at 3 skills that we thought that students need to make sure that they're exhibiting and having as they think about coming in and joining Johnson & Johnson. And so our goal was really to inspire students so that they leave with a fresh perspective on Johnson & Johnson and a desire to learn more about the opportunities available to them to join Johnson & Johnson.
That's great. One of the things that you mentioned was that virtual Zoom fatigue, which we've all experienced and we've all had. And I think even a well-known brand like Johnson & Johnson, I mean, clearly you all have been in the news lately, you know, for a variety of good reasons, which we appreciate, by the way, thank you. But one of the things that I think is important too, that's hard to really communicate virtually, is that company culture. And so how did you utilize that, and how did you really facilitate somehow making students who attended your events really understand what the culture was so they could determine if this was a company that they wanted to work for?
Yeah, absolutely, Wayne. And I think that's one of the things that you'll notice about J&J is that we want to make sure that students have the opportunity to understand our company culture and understand who we are as an organization. And so, as I mentioned, our credo is at the heart of everything that we do. And so we worked with a third-party vendor out of the EMEA region to really know that that was our heart of what we wanted to be able to share. And so they helped us through storytelling, through activities, through a series of mini quizzes for students to be fun, to have them engaged, to really weave that storytelling about our credo throughout the entire process. So we started with talking about the history of Johnson & Johnson. We talked about what is our credo and what does it really mean and what does it stand for? And certainly, you know, you can go and Google and find our credo online. It's not a secret to Johnson & Johnson, but what we wanted to make sure that we were able to do is show students how we actually live out our credo every single day in the work that we do. And so I think last year was obviously a huge testament where we could actually show our credo a little bit more in action with everything taking place with the pandemic. But it was a really nice opportunity for the students through a series of stories, through interactions, social quizzes, et cetera, to be able to understand and learn more about our credo and our company culture through those experiences with Breakthrough Change.
Oh, that's interesting. And utilizing an outside vendor, that was great to have someone just come in and look at things maybe a little bit differently as well. So
absolutely, and we really started by showing them what we've done previously, and they were able to take that and replicate it in a virtual setting, but also kind of elevating it and taking it to the next level, knowing that, again, we wanted to make sure it wasn't just another presentation where students were coming onto Zoom, logging in, but really having that opportunity to be interactive and engaged throughout the entire presentation.
That's great. Yeah, I really like those engagement ideas. It's not just sitting through yet another webinar, but really getting them involved. So that's great. Good, good. Erica, we'll turn it to you. I know you talked about an intern to full-time campus hire pipeline. It sounds like you all look maybe at a hybrid approach. So can you tell us a little bit more about your opportunities and how you set your program up this past year?
Yeah, so I would say to kind of give you a little bit of back information. So I mentioned before, I'm with Ryan LLC. We're a global tax consulting firm. And as you know, within tax consulting, there's usually 4 companies that everyone knows of, and it's hard to compete with those. So we really had to take an approach to get people excited about Ryan and not go the traditional path that maybe They've been told by family members, parents, teachers to go. And so we created our internship program to be, can you hear me? Oh.
Yeah, we can. It seems to be cutting in and out a little bit. So I'm not sure if it's your, so it seems a little bit better now. Your video's gone, but maybe that will help your audio if we want to try again.
Yeah, we'll try that way. And so what I was mentioning is, we really tried to get some students excited about our internship program with the hopes that after they were here, they saw the benefits of Ryan and decided to come back full time. So we had 78 interns this past year, last summer, and we're able to convert about 75% of them. So, that's a pretty high acceptance rate for an internship program. So we really spent a lot of time working on our culture, making sure that they understand what our culture is like here, as well as giving them real world experience, what it's like to be a consultant at Ryan. So one thing that we did implement is that since they're only here for, 2 to 3 months out of a year, a lot of our tax consulting projects work, on an annual basis. So, they might only see a snapshot while they're here. So we worked with our practices as well as our learning group to create mock trials as well as mock projects that they could work on so they could see the full picture of a tax consulting project. So we really had to take a step back and look at it of, okay, what are they not seeing while they're here at the intern program that they would like to see that would make them want to come back full time? So we were very intentional on what we gave them exposures to. And as you can see with our numbers, we are able to capitalize on that. So we're excited. We hope that it continues each year as we grow bigger.
That's great. That rate is incredible. So congratulations on that. I'm just curious, did that compare with previous years, or was that, do you feel like it went up a little bit because you were able to engage more students virtually? How did that work out?
It went up actually. So we did the summer before, we were close to 70%, and did do a big jump. And so we have really high hopes for this summer on what our rates will be for interns converting.
That's great. Do you feel like because the rates did go up, are there things that you kind of had to do it by necessity now? Are there things that you might replicate this next year that you're going to continue to have be part of your recruitment process moving forward?
Yeah, of course. I would say the biggest thing that we implemented is giving them a lot more exposure on, virtual calls together with leadership as well as previous interns. We definitely saw that they really liked that. I would almost call it a mentorship aspect with people who are 1 to 2 years out of school, and people aren't even in their office location. So our interns are spread across 52 offices. So we really had to make sure that they got to, get exposure to different groups as well as different locations. And I think that moving forward, we'll definitely continue that even if people are in the office.
That's great. That's really amazing. Good. Thank you for sharing that. So Keith, I'll turn it back over to you now.
Excellent. Well, for the Members' Choice Award, we'll go back to Stephanie Reyes with Cal State Fullerton. So you won the award for the Diversity Campus Recruiter Ally Training. Can you tell us a bit more, Stephanie, about just your initial inspiration developing this program and kind of what you ended up achieving so far?
Yeah, thanks, Keith. So just some background about Cal State Fullerton. So we are one of 23 campuses in the California State University system, and we are known for being extremely diverse. And we also have about 40,000 or so students that attend Cal State Fullerton. So the Diversity Campus Recruiting Ally Training was really created to help educate our employers on best DEI practices around recruiting strategies at our campus specifically. Because within the last couple of years, we were receiving calls from employers wanting to recruit our diverse students, but couldn't really speak to the current diversity support for their employees within their organizations. And so that was a little concerning to me as, thinking about connecting those employers with our diverse students, right off the bat without having really a relationship yet with Cal State Fullerton, nor, support for, like I mentioned, their employees currently around DEI. So we partnered with our Human Resources Diversity Initiatives Office to help with the DEI education piece. And as well as our Diversity Initiative Resource Centers, the director for those centers participated as well to share really the challenges and obstacles that the students that utilize those centers face and really what those centers' purposes are for, because the employers always ask, can I be connected with those centers as soon as they call our campus to start the recruiting process? And that's not really, the strategy that we like to take. With employers that still, we still feel need maybe a little bit more, practice or strategy around that DEI recruiting efforts. So we also had a DEI best practices employer panel from a couple of organizations that we work with that we feel do DEI really well in terms of recruiting. And the training took place in the mid-afternoon and it was for about 4 hours. We were pretty, we felt like it was really successful. We had about over 100 RSVPs for, it was virtual obviously, and 79 attended and then 59 stayed for the entire 4 hours, which was really impressive to me because it was a long time for an employer to stay. So yeah.
Wonderful, and especially just because DEI is continuing to grow in importance both on the campus side as well as the employer side. So it's really great that you're providing such a training like this. Is there anything you might change, Stephanie, for the next time you might do this training that you think would be of more benefit?
Yeah, I think if I could do it all over again, I probably would have started off with a sending a DEI needs assessment out to our employer base to see first what they wanted, what they would like to see in terms of training. It seems like they enjoyed what we provided, but at the same time, I still want to provide, education around what they're looking for as well. So that's what I would do next time is send out, a survey to see what are you looking for from us that can really help you with recruitment on our campus. I think that would probably be one of the things that I would do over again.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Stephanie, for really initiating something like this. It's going to be a really cool thing that I think a lot of NACE members would love to replicate as well. So thank you for that. We do have a question in the chat actually for Beth. So Beth, you'd like to answer, I think the attendee asked, can you discuss a bit more about your Zero Credit Pathways program? How did the faculty participate, promotion, and how did you get students to participate along the way?
Sure. So we actually started with the business school. They were the most interested in requiring students to complete career development activities in order to better prepare them for internships. So we worked very closely with the dean and specific faculty members to introduce the program, to talk about our goals. We did start with modules, which were not courses. And what we found is typical for most students is they waited till their very end of their senior year to actually participate in the courses, in the modules. And so what was happening is that students were feeling frustrated because the activities weren't as valuable for them, because there's an assessment and it's about learning how to craft resumes and cover letters. And so students were rushing at the very end, and that created some frustration on the side of the students, and also, a monumental task for our career advisors in trying to manage that workload all at the end of the semester. So we reimagined what the Pathways program would look like and convinced the business school and one of our other schools to adopt the courses as a framework and get students to actually register for the courses early, either their second semester at Ramapo or in their sophomore year. And so students were really getting the maximum benefit by participating earlier in their college career, they're being exposed to career development earlier, and students are able to, we hope, see the value in doing those activities. You know, one of my favorite comments from students that I included in our proposal was, you know, a student said, though tedious and annoying, it was indeed helpful for preparing for interviews. And so students are seeing the value looking back. So they do, in the first course, do an assessment, attend an online workshop, and then create a career map with identifying some potential careers they're interested in, potential activities they should get involved with, and then doing some research on those activities. For the second course, it consists of writing a resume, creating a cover letter, or starting to work on your personal statement for graduate and professional school, and then setting up a LinkedIn profile. And then the third course is about interviewing, helping students learn how to research companies and graduate programs, and learning how to prepare and conduct interviews. And they actually do a mock interview, practice interview, either in person or through Big Interview as part of that third course. So those are the pieces. And once we were able to collect some data from the first schools that adopted these, we were able to go to other deans and faculty and show them the value, that students were finding it helpful, that employers were giving us feedback that our students were better prepared, that students were finding the courses helpful, and we were able to convince other deans. And then we did have a couple of schools that were holdouts that weren't sure about the graduation requirement. And we actually found students in those schools asking, well, how come we don't get this? How come, you know, the Career Center isn't doing this for us too? And that really helped us expand to all of our schools at Ramapo, all 5 schools, because students were asking for it when they saw that their friends were getting this kind of preparation and they weren't. So that was really a big help in sharing that data, getting support from schools, and then, you know, students saying, you know, how come not us? And so now all of our students are required to complete the courses in order to graduate. And the course framework makes it much more manageable for our staff, because we know, you know, what students should be taking, what courses in what semester. So I hope that answers the question.
Awesome. Thank you, Beth. It's so good to have, you know, student word of mouth really propel that forward and to get more buy-in from other stakeholders on campus. So thank you for that. If it's okay with you, Wayne, I think we can move on to the next round of questions as well. I'll turn over to Stacey Moulton from Providence College. So follow-up question for you, Stacey. So if someone wants to replicate your Find a Friar series program, what do you think they would need to know up front in terms of steps to take and pitfalls to watch out for?
Sure. One of the things that made it very successful for us was a strong collaboration. So starting from just our team, we had everyone on deck so that we could split up these events. So we did go a little ambitious with 21, and I don't know that we'll do that next year. It was a lot, but it was great because we divided up the staff, so everyone pretty much had 2 to 3 events, and even then there was crossover to support. So that was one thing. We also had strong collaboration with the alumni office. So we've always worked with them for our in-person events. So it was just natural to continue to have that support. So they would help spread the word to the alumni, as well as give us kind of fill in the gaps when we needed alumni for a certain event. The other thing that we've always done with our in-person was we had the alumni club support. So we did that one as well. And we would partner with different clubs. So for Hartford, where there was a lot of actuary, that was our careers in actuary event. We partnered with them, which was natural. The event, which to my surprise and happiness, because it was the one event that I did since I did all the marketing, was we did a kickoff event for the do's and don'ts of networking. We thought students are very intimidated by that. So why not have a panel from the alumni who are at our networking events on things that they've had for success. So that one we had over 100 students come to, which was great. So I think that was really helpful, sending a postcard home to family, all those tricks that we did. What was really exciting for us. With this many events, we did it when we thought we wouldn't have that many students because of Zoom fatigue, but we had more students than we do for the in-person events because we could now, these events are usually New England based, so Boston, New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey. Now students that go home to the West Coast could participate. We didn't have to offer credit, which was really great, but we could also engage alumni that wasn't from that kind of central area for us, which was really great. Pitfalls definitely is finding the right topic. So having 21 topics was a lot. So the general panel was good. Some of the niche ones didn't have as much. So that's what we'll do. I think next year we'll actually probably continue with a virtual event just because weather, we didn't have to worry about budgets. It was always hard to find a space in New York City to host this. So that wasn't an issue anymore, but trying to find those sweet topics that would have, more bang for your buck, or also just setting that expectation that if there's not that many students that come, we'll still be able to promote this, we'll record it and hand it out later. So I think that was kind of what we'll really dig deep into, seeing which are those topics. Careers in sports marketing was a huge hit. So certain things like that, and we were also pleasantly surprised, I think similar to what other students have found. Obviously business school, we got a lot of support, but we had a lot of liberal arts students. So it was really great to be able to kind of diversify that as well.
Excellent, Stacey. I'm glad it kind of got around the Zoom fatigue and students were still open to participate in something like that virtually rather than having to deal with the logistical challenges of hosting something like that in New York City, like you said, and dealing with all those topics. And how did how was it received by the alumni? How did the alumni respond? How was that like?
Yeah, so the alumni also were thrilled. I mean, PC and I always joke that this is part of my job has always been the shadowing program networking nights. They always make my job easy because when they say the Fryer family, they really mean it. And they were quick to raise their hand. It was just easy for everyone because you didn't have to, I'm working all day and now I have to travel somewhere. They could just hop on. So we were able to have much more variety of alumni. We had young alumni as well as older alumni, just to kind of span the different levels of knowledge. So they were very happy to get to give back, share their information afterwards as well. So I think it was a win that way. And also just kind of with that for students, it was able to get rid of the barrier of the students that maybe couldn't travel just because financial reasons or location reasons, that we realized that, wow, this really opened up for a lot more students on more than just a geographical reason. It broke down a lot of barriers.
Excellent. It's always a big win when you're able to increase accessibility for all stakeholders. Thank you, Stacey.
You're welcome.
Wayne, I'll turn it over to you for the other questions that you were hoping to ask some of our other panelists.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's been interesting from the recruitment perspective is, even though travel is exhausting, there's some excitement about being on campus and being around the students. And that's what really kind of gets you excited and motivated. And recruiting this year was just different. So Jamil, how did you find that you stayed motivated and excited? How did you inspire yourself, your team, to just do it this different way and get people engaged and faculty engaged and students engaged and all that in this new way?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Wayne. And I think to your point, a lot of times folks that get into recruiting are energized by the change of scenery or not necessarily being in the office every day, going from a campus or events or conferences or whatever else. You just get a lot of that energy from being able to have a different change of pace in your day every single day. And so I think one of the things that I tried to make sure that our team was aware of is that we need to make sure that we are looking at our purpose of why we bring these individuals in and how we can help really the candidates really develop and really start their careers here at Johnson & Johnson with us. We always talk about we want to have
Jamil, I think we're losing. I think we're
centric approach, and I think that's what we try to do throughout our recruiting process. But then, as we thought about developing having this event, we wanted to make sure that candidates have the opportunity. Can you hear me now?
It's a little bit better. It was cutting out, but I think it's okay.
Can you
again.
hear
Go
me
ahead.
now, Wayne? Just want to see if you
Yes.
can hear me.
Mhm. Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. Sorry about that there. So again, I think it's about really making that candidate-centric experience for the candidates being involved. And so for us, staying motivated was a little bit different. I think last year really took back. We were all able to take a step back to remember what was important. I think from our health, from our safety, from our friends and loved ones. I think we all knew maybe someone that potentially was affected by COVID or even experienced COVID. I remember that we all have a job to do, and we have a really important, especially for us at Johnson & Johnson, we had a really important responsibility to bring in talent that's going to help us solve and change the trajectory of healthcare, not only from COVID, but as we think about other diseases and other things that we're fighting every single day. We want people to live those longer and healthier lives. And so our mission and purpose was easy, but it was also kind of hard just to stay motivated, knowing that we're also, every single one of us, we're fighting for our lives to stay healthy, and especially given the unknown that was surrounded by COVID. So we all took a step back and really thought about what's important for us. So working from home, or are there opportunities to have policies like summer flex hours, or making sure that we're spending times with our loved ones, or we're making sure that we're just able to do what we need to do to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves both physically and mentally, but then also remembering our purpose that we have at Johnson & Johnson and the responsibility that we have as a talent acquisition organization.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. So, and then Jamil, there is a question in the chat for you that one of our college members asked, how would they be able to create a partnership with J&J? Would you be the best person to talk to, or who should they interact with?
Yeah, absolutely. They can reach out to me. I think one of the things that has been able to be, that we've learned through COVID, is that we've been able to be a little bit more school agnostic and really being able to go out and really attract candidates from all over. So I think the cool thing about it is making sure that you're staying connected with LinkedIn or having those opportunities. We'll certainly be able to post some of our Johnson & Johnson events that we're going to have this fall for students to be able to connect. And I think that's the best way to make sure that folks can stay connected with J&J.
Okay, that's great. And then I noticed that Lisa asked the question. Thank you. So Lisa, my guess is that our NACE staff can also assist you with getting more connected with Jamil specifically if you had additional questions. So that's great. Thank you. All right, good. Erica, one of the things that I think we heard from employers was that this virtual environment almost kind of evened the playing field for everyone, because you were talking about really needing to compete with the big four, but everyone was kind of interviewing the same way and going to the same classes and doing kind of the same thing. So kind of the same question for you. Did you find it more motivating and more inspirational? Did you feel like you could compete better maybe with your bigger competitors, or how did you find this set you up a little bit differently perhaps?
Yeah, I really do feel like it has evened out the playing field a little bit more, so that the smaller companies that are more on the B2B versus, going directly to consumers can actually engage with, college students and get them excited about a different career path. So we really enjoyed it, kind of taking a step back and doing things more on a virtual level, and having those information sessions that, we're able to do on Handshake. I know some of your universities might be using that to be able to engage with students across universities. I think that has been really great for us, because some of our offices, talking about New York, our New York office only has 50 employees. So it's really hard to be going to, 6 schools for, one open position. But now that we have, a virtual environment, we can get out to those, multiple schools, host information sessions online, and then be able to do interviews with more students. And I think that's what's more exciting about this time. And I think we're excited to continue that effort. Regardless, we'll still obviously want to go back on campus and see people face to face, but we've got really good feedback from students saying that they actually enjoy the interview process, because we changed it too, where we do panel interviews. And so they truly get to know not only who they would be reporting to, but then also their peers and their team members, so that they get that interaction of, okay, I could see myself interacting with these people. I could see myself being with them day to day. And so we saw that that was really helpful too, to not only have the interview process with the managers, but with their peers and team members.
That's great, because I would think that probably a lot of these students, in previous years, especially the ones that are junior and senior, saw the Big Four on their campus, and that's sort of all they ever thought about. And now suddenly they realize that there are other opportunities out there besides just that. Did you find that as well, that was helpful?
Exactly. Yeah, very much so. That we were able to go out there and host those sessions where people could say, wow, we still have 3,000 employees worldwide. So we're not a small company. I would say a little bit mid-size, and there's a lot of opportunity. And I think that's kind of, talking what Jamil said about the culture of really understanding what students want to see, and kind of bringing that into the interview process when they get to talk to their team members. So that's kind of too, we had to do some training where, we encourage managers to ask some, behavior-based questions, but we encourage the team members to have that conversation about culture and what it's like to work here. So it's almost, an opportunity too for the students to be able to ask the questions that they don't feel comfortable asking directly to that manager. I think it was a good learning lesson, and something that will continue as, we keep expanding too, just because my team is a team of 4 that we recruit all intern as well as the entry level hiring for all 52 offices. So we're gonna have to continue to do virtually if we're going to be able to expand as much as we would like to.
That's great. Thank you. That's good. Stephanie, we'll wrap up with you before we open up to questions from the audience. But I'm thinking that you probably have been approached about, especially with the D&I award, you've been approached by employers probably more than ever. And so that's probably been exciting, but it's also probably been a little bit frustrating as well, because employers are now coming to you asking questions that we probably should have been asking all along. So kind of the same, how did you stay inspired and excited about the work when maybe you had days when it was frustrating dealing with employers who probably weren't asking the right questions or asking it in a way that was really appropriate?
Yeah, thanks, Wayne. Yeah, definitely in the beginning, like you mentioned, it was frustrating. But then I started to think about, well, it's not intentional, right? Because a lot of the companies that were asking these questions were actually your smaller to mid-sized companies. And I started to realize, well, they probably don't have the feasibility or, to have the training that they need to be best educated on diversity recruiting at campuses like ours. So instead of just pointing the finger and saying, hey, you should know how to do this, I thought, well, let's see if we can work together and help to educate them, like I mentioned, about what diversity means on our campus. So the training really started off, half of it was for the recruiter to help them, become a little bit more versed in DEI. Like we had the first hour was about DEI 101 and just, how do those 3 areas intersect. And then we provided them with the NACE self-assessment for them to, do that piece, a little bit of that. We didn't have, a lot of time to really delve into it too much. And then the second half was really for them to learn more about, like I said, what is diversity? What does diversity look like on our campus? And that's important for you all to know as you continue recruiting with us. So yeah, so it was frustrating, but then what motivated me was really the opportunity to do this virtual and try it out as a pilot, because, when you do something in person, you're putting money, you're putting a lot of things into it. So really felt like this was the time to try this out, and it was successful. So we look forward to providing more of these types of trainings as we go into in-person or even hybrid type of situation.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. Yeah. And obviously not to mention anybody specifically, company or name or anything, but is there a story from maybe this past year of maybe an employer that you think we really made a difference with this employer? Either they hired students that they would have never hired before, they just looked at things differently. Any story or metrics like that you might have?
Not at this point. You know, since it took place during the pandemic, I think it was really challenging for a lot of folks, especially in the recruiting area, because, you know, the job market and all of that. So I'm really looking forward to following up with the attendees as we move back to going on to campus and you know, seeing how did it, you know, a couple months later, you know, how do you feel that the training benefited you, and you know, we can kind of touch on that, like you mentioned, Wayne, and to see if it did have a long-lasting effect on them or not.
That's great. Good. Very good. Just a reminder to any of you that are participating right now, if you have any questions, you can certainly put them in the Q&A or in the chat. We'll be more than happy to address those. But one thing that I did want to do is just give each person maybe the opportunity, is there anything else about your program, you know, the questions that Keith and I asked, maybe you didn't get asked a specific question, but you wanted to address that. So maybe we can just kind of go around the area here. Beth, we'll just start with you. Anything else that you'd like to address or bring up to the group that's here today?
Sure. I think, you know, with all of these programs, I'm thinking the panelists will agree that it's important to, you know that things won't work. Not everything will work, and it's important to stay flexible and collect data and continually make changes. We've had, you know, the Pathways program at the college for over 5 years now, and we, you know, collect data and make changes every semester. And so I think that's one of the things that helps keep certainly myself, but the staff motivated, is knowing that, you know, we do need to change some things, but, you know, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. If we can get through the semester, we'll make some changes to make the administration of it easier, to help, you know, increase student satisfaction and to really better prepare our students. So I think that, you know, that's one of the keys in development of any program. And, you know, there was a question about, you know, how we stay motivated. And I wanted to say, you know, we most of us entered this budget year with, you know, little to no money for professional development. And I look back at these past, you know, 19 months and see that I've probably done more professional development and attended more webinars during this period than ever before. And I think, you know, that's thanks to organizations like NACE, who have been able to, you know, provide, you know, low to no expense opportunities for webinars and professional development. And that's been a great motivator throughout this time. So thank you for the opportunity to share that.
That's great. Thank you. In our just internal talking among this group, since you were talking about being motivated, Jamil, apparently there's a lot of people that really had some interest in your how you stayed motivated. So can you just kind of talk to a little bit more about what you shared with the rest of the group that's on screen?
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Wayne, for that. And I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I think the pandemic really forced us to slow down and think about what's important. So for me, I know I had spent a lot of time not really focused on myself and me as an individual, and had been focused more on the go. And we mentioned this a little bit earlier, of traveling and going from hotel to hotel and airplanes and driving, and really not spending a lot of time really focusing on myself. And so the pandemic, with us being able to be home and being able to, you know, focus and be a little bit more in isolation in some ways, really allowed for us to think about what's important in our lives and our careers. And so for me, it was a great opportunity to realize that, you know, my health was something that I was putting on the back burner and wasn't really taken advantage of. So I was able to really, you know, focus in on my health and what I'm eating. Lost about 35 pounds throughout the pandemic last year, and I'm still losing a little bit more. But I think it's also important for us to think about, you know, taking time. I know we all have really important jobs, whether we work at a university, whether we work for a corporation or whatever else, but it's important for us to think about, like, what about our families? What about those types of things that we really, I mean, at the end of the day, when we close our laptops, most of us are partners, we're husbands, wives, spouses, we're mothers, fathers, uncles, whatever else it may be. And so I think it's important for us to make sure that we are thinking about what's important in life. I know that we all have really important jobs, and we need to deliver and be able to, you know, achieve our goals, but it's also important for us to think about our health and our safety and our families and making sure we're spending that type of time, because as we saw throughout the US and other parts of the world, a lot of people left this world last year, and unfortunately due to this pandemic. But it's important for us to make sure that we understand and take advantage of those opportunities that we have with our loved ones and those that we care about. So that to me was really something that was an aha, and something that definitely kept me motivated. And you know, certainly, you know, you look at things a little bit differently. And I think personally, I had COVID last year, especially during the 4th of July time. So being in a room by myself in my house and not being able to see folks and only seeing them through video and losing taste and smell and being extremely tired and all the other symptoms, you know, it was a realistic moment to be like, you got to slow down and really take care of yourself. And I certainly hope each of us on the call are doing that, and making sure that we're finding that appropriate balance within our lives.
Wow, thank you for sharing that really, really personal example. I think it just helps us too, that even with a company that focuses on health for all of us, that you have to remember that you have to focus on your own personal health work in there as well. So
absolutely.
That's great. Thank you. Stacey, is there anything else that you wanted to add about your program that you think the audience might be interested in, even metrics or anything just overall about the program?
Sure. I feel like when COVID started, the key word everyone always said was pivot. And I think now things are returning, it's going to be hybrid. And one of the things we found while this event, we had over 400 students attend, and multiple of them attended more than one of the events because it was easy to just jump on and they didn't have as much going on. They still miss that in-person feeling. So trying to find that balance of what do we want to have in person with what's going to be virtual. And I think for us, this program will probably be one of the virtual ones, because while they say they want that networking, I think traditional networking events are a little bit aren't as popular as they used to be, say 15 years ago, because people just want the quick touch. So I think this might be something that would be good virtual, again, with budgets. And we did have such success, but definitely having to bring some alumni events and networking events back to campus. So I think it's, as I think Beth had mentioned, kind of reassessing, seeing what worked, what didn't, and where we can find that balance to give students a little bit of both moving forward.
That's awesome. Thank you. Great. Good, Keith, I'll turn it back over to you to wrap up with our last couple of panelists and close things out for us.
Sure. Yeah. Well, Erica, any additional things about what you did this past year with Ryan LLC that you'd like to, you know, think would be a benefit to our panelists and other attendees here on this call?
Yeah, I would say, you know, I think all of us were talking about it earlier about the Zoom fatigue and you know, always having to go and be on camera. But I would say the one thing that we've found that interns really enjoy is doing some type of social activity, even if it's a quick icebreaker at the beginning of a call or something funny that they can engage with. You know, I think you forget being out in the working force and being on all of these professional meetings where you are having to present, you know, other things that, you know, sometimes we all just need to connect and have a good laugh. And so we've really found that our interns really like that. We do just a quick game, and you guys all have probably done it before, but where everyone will turn off their camera and then we'll do something and you know, say a comment of, you know, who doesn't have shoes on, and everyone who doesn't have shoes on will turn their camera on, and then we'll call on, you know, one person or two people to say, you know, why they do that. It's been fun to see the interns interact and get excited about that. So I think that's kind of my advice. We've really tried to implement that with all of our intern calls, and then even our internal calls, just to have you know, a few laughs together that you typically would have done if you were face to face when you're grabbing coffee. So I would say that's kind of my my last thing that I would add to it. But outside of that, I think this is great, and I really enjoyed hearing from everyone today.
Thank you, Erica. I think that goes not just for students, but for anybody that has had to deal with this virtual environment that we live in, and we're still dealing with in any kind of sense. To be able to have that interaction, to be able to have that variability in what is available for your program. So thank you for really reminding us of that necessity and how important that is. Stephanie, I'll kind of wrap up with you, I guess, in terms of now what's next for you in terms of this diversity campus recruiter training, and how has DEI changed? Those conversations changed about DEI, at least for you on campus and the employers that you work with.
Yeah, and also I didn't touch on what DEI looks like on our campus, and so we are a Hispanic serving institution, and we have a large percentage of first generation college students. So that is one of the big, other big pieces of this, is to help our recruiters to understand, the best approaches when working with students, not just first generation college students, but students of, various diverse backgrounds and identities, on, how to stay genuine and how to be sensitive to the various challenges and obstacles that they face as a student, and not just come at them, right away with, it's all about the job talk. It's more about getting to know the students and building your presence and your brand on our campus. And so in terms of our next steps, we're in the process of creating a DEI website for our employers. We're putting together a DEI mission statement for our employers to share, what the best practices are to recruit on our campus, and kind of how we prefer to start you off when you're new to our campus in terms of recruiting. So, like I mentioned, starting that brand first, building those relationships with various departments before we put you to directly, connect you with our diverse centers and areas like that. So yeah, we're excited to continue this effort, have additional trainings as well. The next training we hope to have will involve a student panel and more conversations with the employers to interact directly with the students and get to have that important conversation directly with them. So.
I just did a Zoom mic. I forgot to unmute myself. So anyway, but thank you, Stephanie, for sharing about kind of how you allowed your employers to really understand what that mission statement about DEI is, and getting them aligned on the same page as to what that looks like and for their commitment to that. So thank you for that. Wayne, I just want to really kind of end off just really congratulating again our panelists here to have won our awards this year for NACE, the Career Services Excellence Award, the Recruiting Excellence Award, as well as the Members' Choice Award. So congrats to you all. And of course, anybody on this call would feel free to connect with any of our panelists afterwards, find them on LinkedIn, connect with them elsewhere. I'm sure they'd be happy to continue the conversation about their programs and what they were able to do this past year. At this point, we'll turn it now back over to NACE to close out this session.
Thank you, Keith Sun and Wayne Hampton, and our panelists today for a very informative session. And thank you, participants, for attending today's webinar. The archive, along with step-by-step instructions on how to receive these items, will be made available within 3 to 5 business days. Please note that the PowerPoint presentation will be made available following today's webinar. We would like to thank you for attending today's session. This officially concludes the webinar, and you may now sign off.